This conference will now be recorded.
Now, so in the last session, we have discussed about the batch programming, and we have discussed what exactly the batch programming, how to implement, how the batch process will work internally, what is that execution life cycle, and whenever if you are going to be processing the records by dividing them to the various small pieces called as batches, what are the various interfaces and the methods that we are using as part of implementation, and what exactly the interface that we need to use in order to achieve the batch processing, and what methods are available inside that interface, and what exactly the syntax, and what each method will do internally, what exactly the internal process, how these methods are communicating with each other, and what kind of questions they will raise in the interview point of view on this batch processing, and then what kind of partial processing mechanism allowed by Salesforce between the batches, and how to maintain the partial processing within the batch, okay, between those various records, where exactly all the batch results information will get resides, how do we know how many batches are available inside the batch processing, how many batches are processed successfully, how many batches has been failed, how can we track this information. Yesterday we have discussed about that. Okay, now, so whenever if we are going to be implementing the batch processing, we have to use an interface called as database.batchable. We have discussed about the batch process execution life cycle also yesterday. So as part of that batch processing, we are using the help of database.batchable interface, which provides all the functionalities to be used to divide the records to the various small batches, and we can process each batch by using a separated transaction. Whatever the batches are available inside your batch processing, every batch will be running under a discrete transaction. That means it will be executing, every batch will be working under the control of a separate transaction. Batch to batch transaction will be getting changed, so that in every transaction you will be getting the fresh limit of governor limits that yesterday we have discussed. Okay, so in this case, for every batch, Salesforce is providing a fresh limit to you, because every batch will be executing under a discrete transaction or separated transaction. So that if one batch has been getting failed, then the failure of one batch will not be impacting on the other batch inside the system. So that one transaction failure should not be impacting on the other transaction, because it is maintaining the isolation process internally. Batch to batch, transaction to transaction, isolation processes are available. So that, because when coming to the batch programming is purely stateless implementation. It's not stateful, it's purely stateless implementation. That means one batch records results cannot be carried forward to the next batch. Batch to batch operations are different, results are different. Okay, now in this case we are going to be dividing the records to the various small pieces called as batches, and each batch we can able to process by maintaining a separated transaction. So that we are using the help of an interface called as database.batchable interface. Okay, we are using an interface called as a database.batchable interface, which we need to implement inside your class. As a step one, we have to implement this interface into your class here. Okay, now, so I'm preparing my own class, and this class has to be get implemented by database.batchable. That means I want to divide the records to the various small batches, and I would like to process each batch record, because I'm having some large number of records are available, some millions of records are there, so I can't consider all these millions of records under a single transaction. Why? Because is inside that single transaction, if one record has been failure, then the whole transaction will get rolled back. So that I'm not considering all the records inside a single transaction, I would like to split them to the various small transactions by dividing them to the various batches. So that in order to achieve the batch processing, we need to use an interface called as a database.batchable interface. Database.batchable interface will be considering every record will be in the form of a subject type. Okay, every record will be considered in the form of a subject type, So I'm implementing this batchable interface inside my class. Now, upon defining the class, for every class we have to specify that access specified. But here I'm indicating that access specified as global. Why? Why these batch classes are in the form of global outside of organization? Because whatever the batch jobs we have implemented, batch jobs are not executing within your organization. Batch jobs are always executing by placing inside that Salesforce queue. Where is that Salesforce queue? That is outside of your organization. So that batch processing is always executing outside of your organization, so that here parallel processing has been introduced, so that in the background outside of my organization batch programming is continuing as it is. Inside your organization you can continue with your operations as it is. That possibility is there. So that to allow this kind of parallel processing, we are using this batch programming. So the batch classes are not executing within our organization. These are always executing by placing inside that Salesforce queue, which is available outside of my organization. So that to make my class can be accessible from the outside of the organization, we are defining that class as global. Okay, so that always a batch classes should be defined with global access specifier. Okay, now this is the first step. Yesterday we have discussed about that. Next, as a step 2, whenever we are implementing any interface inside your class, okay, whenever you are implementing an interface inside that class, then that means what? I am giving that confirmation to that Apex programming that this is the interface that I'm using inside my class as part of my business need. So this interface is having some set of ready-made methods. For those methods, I'm taking care of the responsibility of providing the implementation part. Interface will be having some set of methods, but those methods are non-concrete methods. That means which is having the method signature. That's it. It doesn't have any method body. The body of the function will not be available. Implementation part is not available. Business logic is not available. Simply the method will be available to you. That's it. So whenever I'm going to be implementing this interface inside my class by using this implements keyword is going to be indicating that I am giving the confirmation, I am giving the assurance to my Apex programming that I am taking care of responsibility of providing the implementation for each and every interface method. In my interface, I may be having some 10 methods, 1 method, 20 methods, whatever. I am assuring you, I will provide the implementation for each and every method. So as part of the Apex programming here, we need to provide this implementation part. Why? Because when you go to the object-oriented programming principle, as part of object-oriented programming principle, whenever you are implementing any interface inside the class, then always we have to provide the implementation for every method available inside that interface. Okay, for every method inside the interface, we have to provide the implementation part, even though that method may be utilized, the method may be useful to you or not. Simply we have to provide that implementation part just by opening the open braces, close braces here. Okay, now. So in this case, I'm indicating to that Apex programming that I am going to be providing the implementation part for this interface methods. Now tell me, inside this batchable interface, what methods are available? How many methods are there? 3 methods are there. What are those 3 methods? Start, execute, finish method. 3 methods are available. Now what the start method will do basically here? 1%. Now tell me. Okay. Okay. Why we are storing those records inside the temporary memory? Why can't we hold inside that collection? Okay. Collection. Okay. Right. In this case, when coming to the start method responsibility is it has to collect all the records which you would like to process. Okay. Inside my object, I may be having some millions of records, billions of records also. So what are the records you would like to process? Collect those records from the object by making an SOQL query. Generally, normal SOQL query will return how many records? 50,000 records to you. But by using batch processing, we can able to process some large number of records also. Large amount of data we can process. That means millions of records also we can process. How many millions of records we can process through batch programming? 50 million. Okay, 50 million records we can process by using batch processing. Then how can we get these 50 million records from my object? If I'm using a normal SOQL query, it returns only 50,000 records to me. I want to get all the 50 million records. How? database dot get query locator, right? So now in this case, upon executing this SQL query, we have to use that method called as database dot get query locator method. Database dot get query locator method is having the capability to fetch the records from the object up to maximum of 50 million. So if you are using that normal database that query method as part of dynamic SQL, it returns only 50,000. If I'm using static SQL, that is also returning 50,000 records to me, not more than that. So in this case, to collect up to 50 million records, I would like to use a method called as database dot get query locator method, which will be executing the specified SQL query. It will collect all the records from the object up to 50 million, and those records it will be placing inside the temporary memory here. Because all these 50 million records I can't accommodate inside my collection. So that it is placing these records inside the temporary memory, and the temporary memory will be having some starting memory address is available. That starting memory address, it is returning to a class called as query locator class. Now what this query locator class will do inside this one? What is the purpose of this query locator class? Now get query locator method's responsibility is over. Its responsibility is just it will collect the data from that object, placing inside the temporary memory. That starting memory address it is returning. That's it. Its job is over. Now then, who is going to be dividing the records to various small pieces? Query locator class. Now, whatever the starting memory address is available, the starting memory address it is passing to the query locator class. Now, the query locator class will be collecting that starting memory address. Based on that memory address, it will locate that respective memory address. It will identify how many number of records are available inside this temporary memory. Those records are going to be dividing to the various small pieces called as batches. Okay, all these records are going to be dividing them to the various small pieces called as batches based on the batch size. Upon specifying the batch size, what is the range that we can follow? Minimum batch size is what? 1. Maximum 2000. If I'm not passing any batch size, then default batch size is 200. Right. So in this case, now the query locator class is going to be collecting the batch size. Based on the batch size, it is dividing the records to various small pieces called as batches. Okay, this is the functionality will be happening with the start method. So now once the records have been divided them to the various small pieces, then who is going to processing the each and every batch record? How can we process this batch records? By using that execute method. You will be having a method called as execute method. So once the records have been divided to the various small batches, now the start method is going to be collecting each and every batch record. It will be passing to that execute method. Initially, it is passing the first batch 1. Once the batch 1 records have been processed, now the execute method will be receiving this batch records in the form of what? List collection. In the form of list collection. That's what here it is having the parameter called as list collection, list of a subject. So start method is passing a batch records to that execute method. So execute method should be in a position to receive those records to be get processed, so that it is having a parameter called as list collection, list of a subject type. So this is the parameter name in which the records will be getting stored. Okay, now. So in this case, how these two methods will be getting communicate with each other? How the start method will know that execute method is okay ideal state right now? How the start method will know? How these methods are indicating? How they are passing the indications? Database dot batchable context. Okay, we are having a class called as database dot batchable context. Database.batchable context is a ready-made class which establishes a secured communication channel between all the three methods, between start method, execute method, finish method. These three methods are going to be communicating with each other with the help of a communication channel. The communication channel will be establishing by a class called as batchable context. And in this particular communication channel, you will be having that batch job ID also. Okay, batch job ID also. Now, so in this case here, now database start their batchable context is a ready-made class which will be having that parameter. That means this is the reference name I have given like here. This is the reference name I have provided. Okay, by using this reference name we can able to access it. Now, so in this case, when coming to the execute method, it is receiving that first batch records. For example, that is from 1 to 100 records. It is collecting from that the start method. Now to be processing those records here. Once the processing has been done, what it will do, it is committing the changes back to the database. Whatever the records have been processed, those records are going to be committing back to the database. So once that database commitment has been done, that means once the first batch record processing has been done, then what it will do, it is informing to the start method, I'm done with the first batch, so please give me the second batch records. Now it is passing that batch to records, okay, which will be processing by that execute method. So this process will be keep on continuing like as a cyclic process till all the batches has been completed. Once all the batches are done, then finally what it will call finish method. What the finish method will do now? What is the finish method purpose? That means to perform the post execution logic. The post execution means what? Anything. If you want to invoke another batch also we can do. If you want to send some email notification, we can do anything, whatever you want, we can perform that. Okay, there is a possibility here. So that here we are going to be having these three methods. So inside the finish method, we have to write that post execution logics. Inside that execute method, we have to specify the actual business logic. In the start method, we have to collect the records by making some SOQL query inside this. Okay, clear? So yesterday we have discussed about this complete execution life cycle process also. Now today we'll see a practical example on this one. How can we process these records? How can we execute that batch class? And then how can we track the results also? Okay, now whenever the batch programming has been executed, inside a single batch programming, you may be having multiple batches. Okay, you may be having multiple batches are available, where all these batch programming results will be getting resides. Async, right? There is an object called as async apex job object. Okay, all the batch jobs results will be getting placing inside an object called as async apex job object. Async apex job is a standard object which is maintaining the Salesforce, which contains all the batch jobs results information. Whatever the various batch jobs you have processed, all those batch job IDs and their statuses, the number of batches, how many batches has been processed by Salesforce server, how many batches has been failed, who has initiated that batch job, what is that person's email ID, the whole information will be tracking inside the async apex job object. By making an SOQL query to that async apex job object, we can track the result of your batch job status also through programmatically. No need to look into that inside the monitor. We can able to track the batch job status through programmatically also by using that, by making a query with that async apex job object. That possibility is available to you. Then how to do this, all these operations? Now let's see practically in this case. Okay. Now. Now, so now let's take a small use case here. So before that, let me give you some more information on this one. So now this is the batch class, okay, preparation. Yesterday we have discussed about that syntax also. Okay, now. So now once the batch class is ready, then how can we execute the batch class then? What is the way to execute that batch class? Yesterday we have discussed how to invoke that batch class. I will give you the clue. Database class. There is a method. Database dot execute batch. Right. So in order to invoke that batch class, we have to use a method called as database dot execute batch method. Okay. Now make a note of this one. Step 3. Invoking the batch job. How to invoke the batch job? In order to invoke the batch job, we are going to be using the 2 lines of code simply here. Okay. Now we can invoke the batch job by using database dot execute batch method. We can invoke the batch job by using database dot execute batch method. Now the syntax. database start execute batch. Here in this case, in the syntax here. So first of all, as a step one inside this, first of all, we have to create the object of the batch class. Create the object of the batch class. For example, I'm using that batch class name. Batch class name. We can specify the object name equals to new batch class name. Second one. Invoke the batch class. How can we invoke the batch class? By using that database start execute batch. Here we can specify the batch class object name. Whenever I'm going to be invoking the batch class by using the database start execute batch method, now it will be executing the batch class and it is returning the batch job ID. That means what? Execute batch means what? I'm going to pushing this batch job into the queue. Okay, I'm pushing this batch job into the queue. So now, so that it will be executing based on the availability of the Salesforce resources. So whenever I'm using this execute batch, then it is going to be executing the batch class. Executing the batch class means what? It is pushing this batch job into the queue. So upon a job has been placed inside the queue, queue will be allocating one ID for each and every batch job. Okay, for every batch job, Salesforce queue will allocate one ID. We can get that ID also by using that return type ID. We can get that job ID. Okay, it is returning that ID of that batch job. So based on this batch job ID, we can get the status from your async apex job object. Now, so now in this case here, upon invoking this batch job, okay, then we are having that one more syntax is also available. We can use this syntax, or we can use this syntax also. In this case, we have to pass one more parameter, that is batch size. It's an overloaded method. Okay, it's an overloaded method. Two methods are there with the same name but with different parameters. First method is having one parameter, second method is having two parameters. Now tell me, so what is the difference between these two methods? If I'm using that first method, what will happen? If I'm using second method, what will happen? Default size. Where in the first one or second one? Then what is the default size? 200. That means each batch will be having 200 records. If I'm using that second method, then we can indicate our own size. It may be 2 records, 5 records, 10 records. We can specify starting from 1 to maximum of 2000. Not that. Okay. Now in this case, next step 4. So once the batch job has been executed, then where we can track the results. How to track the results of that batch class? Async apex job object. Okay, remember that object name. Okay, async apex job object. Okay, through programming you can track, through user interface also we can track. Two ways are available. In order to track what batch jobs you have executed in each and every batch job, okay, how many batches are available, everything we can able to track by using two mechanisms. One is through user interface also we can track. Second one is through programming also we can track. Then how to do that here? Now let me explain. Okay, both the ways. Now, track the result of the batch jobs. Okay. Now, in this case, we can track the result of the batch jobs by using the below two ways. First one, through programming. Okay, through programming. In this case, we can query the job details and the status information. What is that object name? Async Apex job. Okay, async Apex job object. Okay, we can query the job details and status information from async Apex job object. In this async Apex job object, how can we query the information? What columns are available inside this object here? Inside this object, we are having the various fields. Various columns are available. What are those columns? First column is ID column, which holds the batch job ID. Batch job ID information is available inside that ID field. Second one, status column. It contains the batch job status, which is indicating either it is in holding status, queued status, processing status, completed status, or what. In order to get that status information, we are using that status column. By using this status field, we can track what is the status of my batch job. That status includes either holding, queued, processing, completed. Next, in my batch job, how many batches are available? I want to know. For that one, we have a field called as total job items. Okay, total job item. There is a column which is indicating total number of batches. Total number of batches available inside my batch processing. Then how many batches has been processed by Salesforce? To know that, we are having the job items processed. Okay, job items processed, which will be indicating number of batches processed by Salesforce. In order to know how many number of batches have been processed by Salesforce, we are using that a column called as job items processed. Next, upon processing that batches, some batches may be getting failed. How many batches has been failed? I want to track. For that one, we have a column called as number of errors, which indicates number of failed batches. Okay, number of failed batches. How many batches has been failed? We can get that information by using number of errors. And then created by dot email. That means the owner of the batch job. That means who is that owner? Who has initiated this batch job? That owner, so we can email ID we can collect here. Email ID of the batch job owner. That means that particular user's email ID will collect over here. Okay. Now, So these are the various columns are available inside my async Apex job object. So that by using the query with the help of that ID, we can able to fetch that batch job information. All the batch jobs information is storing inside that async Apex job object. From that, which is batch job details you want. So based on that your batch job ID, we can make that query by using that async Apex job object here. Okay. Now it won't indicate. That will be indicating inside the batch size. Upon executing the this batch size will indicate that. Okay. Now, so this is the manual mechanism, okay, which we can able to execute it through programming. Second one, by using the user interface. Through user interface. Through user interface also we can track. In this case, we have to go to the setup menu, go to the monitor option, go to the jobs, and click on Apex jobs. By using this monitor option, we can able to track what batch jobs you have executed, how many batches are available, how many batches has been processed, how many batches has failed, what is the status of the batch job. The whole information we can track by using user interface also under the monitor section. So we can go to that monitor option, and inside that monitor option we can able to go to the jobs, and then you will be having an option called as Apex jobs, so that we can able to track the result of your batch job also. Okay, that possibility is available. Clear? These are the 4 simple steps. First of all, implement the batch will interface into your class. Second step, provide the implementation whatever you want. Third step, execute the batch job by using database.execute batch method. Fourth one, track the status through programming. Okay, now, so we'll see how can we implement this functionality. Now let's see practically in this case here. Okay, clear about these 4 steps? Now, so let's take a small use case, and then let's see how can we implement this functionality. Now I think everybody is aware of email programming also. Have you referred that notes at least? Did you get the chance to look into email programming at least? Yes, all the methods, single email message class, all the methods I want. Okay. No. So now let's take a small use case. For example, let me take an object. How many records are there? So let me take an organization which is having some more records inside that. Okay. So I would like to take this organization. Now I'm having an object inside my organization with the name accounts. Account object is there. In this account object, I'm having some records. How many records are there? 260 records are available. For every record, because there are some rating values are there, industry values there, annual revenue, ownership is available. Now, I want to update these 4 values for all these records. For every record, I want to assign this rating value as some one, industry as some insurance, annual revenue some 20 lakhs, ownership some private. These are the 4 values I would like to change for every record inside my object. Totally 260 records are available inside my object. Now I don't want to consider all these records inside a single batch. I would like to divide them to the various batches of size 10. Each batch should have maximum of 10 records, not more than that. Now totally how many records are there? 260 records. How many batches will be available to you? 26 batches. Okay, you will be having 26 batches will be available to you. Now in this case, I would like to divide all these 260 records into the various batches of size 10. Then I would like to take each and every batch, I would like to process it. Then how can we implement that batch processing to update that rating value, industry, annual revenue, and the ownership for these records? For every record, I want to change these values here. Okay, now, so let's take that small use case. Take a small use case. Configure a batch job to update the account records details to update the account records details as below by using the batch processing and consider each batch can have maximum of 10 records. And consider each batch can have maximum of 10 records. And send the confirmation and send the status notification to the batch job owner through the email programming. That means through email alert. Through email alert. I would like to take the rating field. For this rating field, I want to assign the value as warm. For the industry field, I'm assigning the value as some finance. I want to take that annual revenue. For this annual revenue field, I want to assign the value some 20 lakhs. For the ownership, I'm assigning the value private. And the active status. Active status should be assigned to yes. These are the field values I would like to update by dividing them to the various small pieces called as batches of size 10. Done? Now. So now tell me your implementation, what we can do now. First of all, what we need to do? We need to create a batch class. That class should be of type what? Global or public? Global class. Okay. That class should be implementing with what? With an interface called as database dot batchable interface. Right. So let me create that batch class first. Go to the developer console. I'm creating a batch class right now. Let me check what access are there inside this. I'm creating a new class. I'm going to be indicating that update account to details batch. Okay. I'm indicating that batch class name as update account to details batch. So now my class is ready. Now tell me what are the changes we need to make now. Make that class as global. Okay, make that class as global. Next. We have to implement that interface that is called as database dot batchable. So for that one, whenever if you want to implement an interface, we have to use a keyword called as implements. Okay, implements. Implements. I would like to implement an interface. What is a database dot batchable interface of type a subject? Okay, so I'm implementing this class with an interface called as database dot batchable. I haven't saved this class code still. It is giving that error message to me. There is no syntactical mistakes inside my class. I haven't written any code. Then it is showing like as here it is indicating that. So what is the mistake inside this one now? Then what happened? Batchable of yes subject. Not account here. It will be a subject type. That means it will be considering all the records information also. Yes, subject will be of type. It will be a common type, generic type. Then, in this case, what happened? That already told you. So, as a principle of object-oriented programming, whenever you are implementing an interface inside that class, then that means here it is a confirmation to that Apex programming that as a class developer or as a class owner, I am going to be providing the implementation for each and every method of interface. That's what it is giving that error message to you. It won't compile your class code. Go to that problems. When you observe the problems, it is indicating that class update account batch the details batch must implement the method like a database start batchable dot start. For the start method, you haven't provided the implementation. Execute method, we haven't provided the implementation. Finish method, we haven't provided the implementation. That means what? Whenever you are implementing any interface inside the class, then always it is our responsibility, even though that method may be useful or not, we need to provide the implementation for that interface methods. Okay, so now it is a fundamental principle of object-oriented programming. We can go with any programming language, also same principles are available. Not only in Apex, especially when you go to the C++, also in C++, we don't have that interface concept. Okay, because it will be supporting that multiple inheritance. But from Java onwards, Java, .NET, Apex programming, these are all are not supporting multiple inheritance. At that time, they have introduced interface concept. Okay, so now in this case, as part of interface is having some set of ready-made methods like as start method, execute method, and then finish method. So we need to provide the implementation for these methods right now. So till the time here, your class code will not be get compiled. This code will not be saving into the metadata repository. Okay. Now, so now we need to provide the implementation part. Now tell me the syntax of each and every method here. Now, the first method. Start directly. Now tell me, return type, global, wide, start method, database start, query locator, start method. Now, here what is the parameter here? Database dot batchable context. Batchable context. For this particular class, for this parameter, I'm giving the reference name as B context. You can give A, B, C, X, Y, Z, anything. It's like as a class. Generally, we are passing the parameters like as integer X, accounts from ACC. Like the similar way, we are passing a parameter with the name, which is a class called as a batchable context class, which is used to establish the secured communication channel between all the three methods of your batch processing. So that we are passing the parameter database dot batchable context. Context is nothing but what? It is establishing a channel. It is establishing a channel which will be available till the batch processing has been done. Generally, for example, I'm using some bank application. From logging into the bank application till the logout here, that is called as one context, that is called as one session. Okay, in between that session we can do so many operations, we can access so many features. Like the similar way, from starting of the batch programming to till the completion of the batch processing, so that these methods to be get communicate with each other. For that one, it is establishing a communication channel that is called as batchable context. So now here we can give the reference name called as B context. For example, I'm giving the name as B context. So you can give any name over here, A, B, C, X, Y, Z, whatever, like as your parameter name. That's it. Okay. Now, next one, second method, global wide execute. Now, so what are the parameters? Database start batchable context. I'm giving that reference name as B context. Okay, for my indication, B context means batchable context. Then why list collection? Because start method is passing the batch records to execute method. So execute method should be in a position to receive the records from that start method. So that to receive those records, not only one record, multiple records, because it is passing one batch record. One batch contains how many records? Maximum 2000. If you want to store more than one record, then always we have to go with that collection. So that I'm having that list collection. List of yes subject type. I'm indicating records to process. I'm giving that collection parameter name as records to process. Here also we can give any name for your parameters here. Next, what is the third method? Global wide finish. Then what is the parameter inside this? Database dot batchable context B context. Okay, I'm giving that parameter name here. So now here I have prepared that three methods. Okay, I prepared that three methods here. So in this case, even though you may use, you may not use here. Okay, always we have to provide the implementation part. Okay, now. So now in this case, here what needs to be done? Now my batch class is ready. Then what we can do? I need to implement the functionality. Now tell me what functionality we need to implement now. Getting the data from the database. Now what data you would like to collect? From which table you would like to collect? Account object. What columns information you want to update? Rating, industry, annual revenue, ownership, active. Okay, these 5 columns are sufficient. Or ID is also mandatory. ID mandatory. Why? Upon updating the record, ID is a mandatory column here. Okay, now so we need to fetch that record information. How? By using SQL query. That SQL query we need to execute how? By using which method? Database dot get query locator method here. Okay, now right. Then where we can write this code? In which method we need to write this code? Start method, right? So now just to go to that start method, prepare the SQL query. For example, I'm preparing the SQL query. String now accounts query equals to, I'm specifying that accounts query here. Select ID of the account record, name, rating value, industry, annual revenue, active status, ownership from account. I'm preparing that SQL query right now. I'm storing inside a string variable. Now then how can we execute this query now? Tell me. Database dot get query locator. Okay, database dot get query locator method. So now this database dot get query locator method is returning what? query locator class. It is returning that return type is a database.query locator. That means now the get query locator method is going to be collecting the data from the object based on the SQL query which you have specified, and then once the query has been executed, collect the data from that object, storing those records inside the temporary memory. The temporary memory starting address, it will pick up that, and that address will be passing to the query locator class here. Okay, now so I'm using this get query locator method. So what is my query name? Accounts query. I'm placing inside this. Now in this case, what will happen? Now this database that get query locator method will be executing this specific SQL query, collect the data, placing inside the temporary memory. Now the temporary memory starting address it will pick up. I want to pass that memory address to whom? To the query locator. Where is that query locator class as the return type of my method? How to pass this one? Simply by using that return state. That's it. Okay, whatever the starting memory address has been collected by that get query locator method. See, the description is there in the name itself, get query locator. That means please execute that specified SQL query, place the records inside the temporary memory, get that location. That means where exactly the records has been placed. Inside my temporary memory, huge space is available. From that huge space, in which location, which starting address this records has been getting placed. So please collect that location of that address, and then please pass that address to that query locator class. Okay, now it is going to be having the class name as query locator. See, so how meaningful the class names are. Just by looking into the class name itself, we can able to understand query locator. That means your query locator. That means query means what? So now some database query which we have executed, collected the data, placed somewhere, that records location is available here. So now it is collecting that location of that particular query records, and then based on that it will go to that respective location. It will be dividing the records to various small pieces. Okay, clear? Understood the concept now? Now. So now here in this case, I'm executing this SQL query by using that get query locator method, and I'm returning that the starting memory address of the records to that query locator class. Now the query locator class will be receiving that starting memory address. Based on that, it will be splitting them to the various small pieces. Okay, clear? Now, so now that start method concept is over. Now we are done with that start method functionality. Okay, start method process is over now. Next, execute method. Now once the records has been divided to the various small pieces, now it is going to be collecting that first batch record. It is passing to that execute method. Now execute method is going to be receiving that batch records, okay, batch records in the form of a list collection, where that list collection is holding the records in the form of a generic type that is called as a subject. A subject is a generic type. You know that concept here. Okay, you know that concept already. We have discussed in the beginning of our Apex programming language during the data types concept. Like we have discussed about the primitive data types, yes, subject data type. There we have discussed about this yes subject, which is a generic type which can able to hold any of the object record also inside it. Now, so now in this case, it is going to be holding the records in the form of a collection, where that collection name is records to process. Okay, now, so in this case, start method is passing the first batch records to this particular start execute method in the form of a collection, where the collection name is records to process. That means whatever the first 10 records has been supplied in the form of list collection, those records are storing inside my collection records to process. Now I would like to collect those records. I would like to verify whether this collection is holding the records or not. Might be start method is passing an empty collection also. At that time, I no need to process anything. I don't want to waste my resources. So that I want to verify whether this collection is empty or not. Okay, records to process is empty or not. That means if the collection is not empty, that means some records has been sent by that start method. Some batch has been processed, or some batch has been sent by that the start method. Now what we can do? What is my requirement now? In this collection, we are having all those batch records. Nothing but 10 records are available here. Then what needs to be done? What is my requirement? I need to collect those records and I need to update those record field values here. Rating field value, I want to assign a new one. Industry field value, I want to assign. Annual revenue field, ownership field, active status field. Okay, now, so in this case, sir, how can we collect this information? But the records are available inside my collection in the form of what? Yes, subject type. But here these fields are what? Account type. Then how can we convert this S subject into account type now? How can we do this one? What we can do? What is that mechanism to convert a subject type into our account type? Explicit typecasting. How to do that explicit typecasting now? So what is that record here? I'm collecting each and every record. For each and every record, how can we get every record from the collection? Now, what is my collection name now? Records to process. In that records to process collection, we are having list of records. What type of records? Yes, subject type. So I'm defining that as subject type. Now this is a subject type. I want to convert it into backward account type. How can we convert? This is the object. That means this is the first record, which is available in the form of a subject type. How to convert into account type here? List of account. No. This is a single record I'm collecting now. Okay, now here I'm iterating that collection from starting to ending. Okay, I'm collecting this record from starting to ending. So now first record I'm collecting, first a subject record I'm collecting here. Now the record is there. Now I want to convert it into what? Account type. How to convert now? Account. Okay, specify that account. That means whatever the subject record is available, please convert this record into my account type. Once the record has been converted into your account type, I want to store inside my variable called as account variable. Okay, account type variable. Now tell me, is this syntax is a new? We did so many times also. Already we have discussed. Okay, during pagination also we did this one. During the SOSL queries also we did the same thing. No different. Okay, so now here in this case, sir, observe this. We are going to be collecting these records. Okay, so now we are collecting this collection of this batch record. That means inside this records to process, this is a collection which is holding one batch record. That means here now the start method is collecting the first batch record. That means first 10 records, it is passing to my execute method. Now the execute method is holding this 10 records in the form of list collection list of a subject type. So now which will be storing inside a collection called as records to process here. This is the collection where exactly the list of records are available. Now here I am going to verify whether this collection is empty or not. That means whether this batch is holding some records or not. If the batch is not empty, if the batch is holding some records, then I'm going to be iterating that collection from starting to ending to get each and every record from the batch so that I can able to update those values. So in this case, I'm iterating this collection from starting to ending by using enhanced for loop. I'm using this enhanced for loop. With the help of this enhanced for loop, I'm iterating this collection from starting to ending. You know this enhanced for loop concept already we have discussed so many times also we have used. I'm collecting every record, that each and every record will be in the form of a subject type. I'm storing that record inside my obj variable. So once the record is available, a subject type of record is available, I need to convert them back to my account type so that I'm going to be doing that explicit typecasting by using that account type. I'm converting this as subject record into my account variable. That means account record I'm storing inside my variable called as SAC. Once the record is available, then what needs to be done then? What needs to be done? Update directly. We need to assign the values, right? Now, what needs to be done? For these records, we have to assign the values over here for these fields. Assign the values here. Now, here I'm indicating the comments. People are refreshing mind every day. Now, I'm assigning the values. How can we assign the values for these fields now? SEC dot rating. I'm assigning the value 1. SEC dot industry. What is the value you want to assign? Finance. SEC dot annual revenue 20 lakhs. SEC dot ownership I'm assigning as private. ACC dot active status. I'm indicating like as yes. I'm assigning the value. Then what we can do? Again update. Database start update. For loop. We are in for loop now. Insert. What we want to do? Records are already there. Adding the record to the collection, because that already told you don't use that DML statements and SOSL queries, SOQL queries inside the for loop. Okay, what needs to be done? Always we have to follow bulkification process or bulkify process. You know the concept of bulkification and the bulkify process already we have discussed. From the beginning, keep on we are utilizing that bulkification process. So here also, don't insert or don't update or don't delete each and every record separately. Once a record operation has been done, don't perform that operation directly on that record. So now in this case here, we need to add the record to a collection. So now I'm preparing a collection here. List of account. I'm indicating that accounts to update equals to new list of account. Then what we can do now? I'm preparing a collection with the name accounts to update, which is of type list of account, because here I'm collecting each and every subject type of record. I'm converting it back to that account to type. I'm assigning some new values here for these fields. Now what needs to be done here as part of bulkification process? Right, that means what? Once a record has been assigned with some new values, don't update the record back to the database directly by using update statement. Add the record to that collection. Okay, add the record to collection. I'm adding the record to the collection. So I would like to add accounts to update dot add. I'm adding the record to that collection now. So now in this case here, what will happen? Now this for loop is going to keep on iterating till the complete batch records has been iterated. It will be collecting that first batch record. For example, that batch is having some 10 records. First record it will collect, converting into my account type. It will be storing inside my ACC variable. I'm assigning the value for these records. That record I'm adding to my collection. It will go to the second subject record, collecting the second record, converting into my own type, assigning the values, adding to the collection. Like that, this process will be keep on executed till all the records have been processed inside that batch. Now once all the records has been assigned with the new value, then what we can do now? Update. Where? Inside the for loop or outside the for loop? Outside the for loop. Now I would like to update that collection here. Whenever we are going to be updating the record, then what needs to be done? Cross check whether the collection is empty or not to avoid the null pointer exceptions. Okay, now in this case what we can do now? How can we write the code? If not, accounts to update is not empty. That means if the collection is not empty, then what we can do now? Update. Update of what? Accounts to update. Right, that's it. So now in this case what we did, we are going to be collecting the records from that batch, that each record we are iterating by using that enhancer for loop, and then those record values I'm assigning with some latest values for each and every field, and then we are not updating the record directly, okay, inside that for loop. Why? Because if I'm using a separate DML statement to update each and every record, suppose if I'm giving the batch size, okay, as a 200 or 300, at that time definitely it will be crossing the governor. Because inside a single DML statement, inside a single transaction, how many DML statements you can use? 150, not more than that. So in this case, if I'm not passing any batch size, then how many records it will consider per batch? 200. That means 200 times this for loop will iterate. But how many DML statements you can use? Only 150. Then definitely it will be hitting the governor limit here. So that don't perform any DML operations inside the for loop. Okay, it may be DMLs, it may be SOQL, it may be SOSLs also. Don't perform it in that for loop. Always we have to go with that bulkification process. So that once the record has been getting assigned with some new values, okay, then add that record to the collection. Once all the records has been added to the collection, then finally outside the for loop you have to perform the DML operations on your records. Okay, clear? Now tell me, any more thing is pending now? Then in this case, Now the start method is collecting the first batch, it is going to processing that, it is committing back to the database. Second batch, processing that, committing back to the database. Like that, all the batches will be getting executed. Finally, what we can do now? In the finish method, what we need to do? Sending the email notification. Now tell me here. So in this case, first of all, I want to get the batch details here. What exactly the ID allocated by the Salesforce for my batch? How do we know? That batch job ID will be available inside your class called as batchable context. That means here, whenever a batch job has been placed inside the queue, Salesforce is allocating that ID. At that time, in that batch job, three methods are communicating: start method, and then execute method, and the finish method. How these three methods are communicating with each other? For that one, there is a channel is available. There is establishing a channel by the database that batchable context class. Upon establishing the channel, it is giving that one identification number for the channel also. Okay, it is establishing a channel number for the each and every channel also. That number is nothing but your batch job ID. So now inside this batchable context class, you will be having the batch job IDs also will be getting resides. How can we get that batch job ID? Let me show you practically here. System.debug batch job ID is. If you want to know the batch job ID, inside that batchable context class, we have a method called as get job ID method. Get a job ID method is going to be returning the ID of the batch job which has been allocated by that Salesforce queue for your batch job. Okay, for your batch job, whatever the ID has been allocated by Salesforce, that ID will be residing inside that batchable context. Now I'm using that. How can we access this batchable context? By using b context variable here. Okay, b context dot get a job ID. Okay, we can able to use that get a job ID method. So now here in this case, okay, now here in this case, like for example, come to a general scenario. Assume that we are having so many cities are there in different locations. In the entire India, so many cities are available. So which has been connected through, okay, which has been connected through some roads. There is a communication transportation way is available. Whenever they are going to be having some roads, okay, in order to connect from one city to another city, one state to another state, for each and every highway they are giving some number, NH4, NH1, NH2, like that they are going to be National Highway 1, National Highway 2, like that they are giving some name. That means this is one of the communication channel. Like the similar way here also, whenever Salesforce is going to be establishing the communication channel, okay, to communicate all the three methods within the batch class, for that communication channel, it is allocating a number, unique identification number. What is that unique identification number? That is nothing but your batch job ID. That means, so now these are the three methods which are communicating with each other related to this particular batch job, so that the batch job ID will be placing inside that the batchable context inside that. So based on that batch job ID, only these methods are communicating with each other, so that we can get that batch job ID from that batchable context itself with the help of a ready-made method called as get a job ID method. Now, so now we know that job ID method. We know that job ID. Based on the job ID, I can track the status or not through programming. Yes. How? I know my job ID. Based on my job ID, how can we get the job status information? From where we can get async apex job object. Now let's see how can we query that. Now tell me the column names. Select ID status. Not referring to the notes, madam. Total job items. Job items processed, number of errors created by dot email from object name async apex job. Next, async apex job object will be holding all the batch job details. My batch jobs information, his batch jobs information, her batch jobs information, every batch job information is there. But I want my current batch job information. Then in this case, how can we get? Where ID, okay, ID equals to what is my current batch job ID? This is a batch job ID here. Okay, batchable context dot get a job ID. That means what exactly the ID has been allocated by the Apex queue for my batch job. I'm collecting my current batch job ID. Based on this batch job ID, I'm collecting only my batch job status information from that async Apex job. Now, so this will be returning how many records to you? Only one record. That means here one batch job information. Now I'm storing the result inside my object here. I'm creating a record, async Apex job. I'm indicating some job details. Understood this query or any confusions? Why I'm giving this one? For example, I'm getting one record from my object. How many records it will return? How to store? How to store? Query is returning only one record. How to store? String record, account record. By defining account SEC. Suppose if it is returning multiple, suppose I'm giving limit to 2, then list a collection. List of account. Now here, why I'm giving account here? Data type. Then why I'm giving account? Why can't we give contact? Okay, we are getting the data from what object? Account. So now here I'm getting the data from which object? How many records it is returning? One record. So that here I'm defining one variable of that async job. Okay, got the point here? No. So in this case here we are collecting the data from account. So which is one account record. To store that account record, I'm defining one account variable of this. Okay, I'm defining one variable here, account type of variable. Suppose if it is a contact, then what we need to do? Contact variable. Suppose if it is async Apex job, then async Apex job. That's it, simple. Okay, so that here we are getting the data from async Apex job object. This is also one of the object, like as your account, contact, opportunity, lead, like us. So this is also one of the object which is storing your batch jobs information inside it. So that here I'm collecting this batch job details and I'm storing inside my record, inside my variable here. Okay, understood this concept here? Now, so once it is available, now I want to send the email notification with these details. Okay, my batch job is over. Now whatever the batch job status is available, we are collecting the status. Then how can we get this information? We can get each and every field information also, like as job details dot we can get the status information. We can get that job details dot number of errors information, everything we can get. Now I want to collect all these details. I want to send the email notification to that person here. How can we do this one? Now tell me how to send this information through email, because in system.debug statement we can't display, because these are executing outside of your organization, so it won't print those messages on your system.debug log file. I want to send it through email notifications. Now tell me how can we send the email notification to the people? Creating the object of what class? Messaging that single email message class. Now tell me in this case here, that code do I need to write inside this one, or can I write inside a separate class? Here also we can write. If I'm writing here, what is the problem? Suppose in future, after this one, I want to create one more batch job also. There also I want to send a notification. There also the same piece of code is required. Then what we can do in this case? In this case, we can raise the question, sir, we can copy and paste also. But Salesforce will be counting each and every character automatically. You know that concept here. Okay. So for that one, I don't want to make that code duplicate. I want to make my code generic. I want to make my code centralized. So that I would like to create a separate class. In that class, I would like to write the code to send the email notification. Okay. So now let me create a separate class here. I'm creating a separate class with the name messaging utility helper. Okay, messaging utility helper class. messaging utility helper class. I'm preparing a class with the name messaging utility helper. Now I'm preparing a method inside this. Send batch job status notification email. Okay. Now I'm preparing a method with the name send batch job status notification email. That means regarding my batch job, once the batch job has been executed, what about the status of my batch job? Regarding the status of my batch job, I want to send an email notification to a person. But this is the batch job which you have executed today. So this is the batch job ID. This is the status of your batch job. These are the number of batches are available. These are the batches processed by Salesforce. These are the batches have been failed. So please verify this information. So I want to send the notification to the person so that I'm giving that method name as send batch job status notification email. Now, where is that status information is available? That is there inside my async apex job record. So what is that record? Job details record. So now I want to pass this record to my method. So how can we pass this one? I'm preparing a parameter over here. Okay, I'm preparing the parameter. Async apex job. Okay, now I'm indicating job info. I'm passing this parameter over here. Okay, so now in this case here, now you can raise a question. Sir, why you are passing this complete record? Why can't you pass ID separately, status separately, total job item? This values you can pass separately also, but the number of parameters are keep on increasing. So to reduce that, I would like to pass the complete record information itself. So if I'm passing that complete record, here we can fetch what records information you want. From here we can able to fetch like as some job info dot status, everything we can able to fetch from here itself here. Okay, now tell me, how can we send the email notification now? Now it's your part now. My part is over. First of all, what needs to be done? I want to send the email notification now. Okay, create the object of that class. What is that class name? Messaging dot single email message. I'm indicating single email message. Right. Next. To address. Okay, right. Now I'm indicating that string parameter, string array here. To address equals to new string array. I need to pass the to address over here. So now the to address is available where to whom you want to send the email notification. Batch jobs owner. Where is that email information? Inside that job details dot created by dot email. This is the email address is available. How we can fetch that information from job info? Okay, job info dot created by dot email. That means we can fetch that email ID of the owner of that batch job dynamically at runtime here. Along with that, I would like to specify my email address also as a CC copy here. I'm indicating my email address. Okay, I'm adding my email address also as a CC copy so that I can able to get one more copy of that email notification. Now then, how can we pass this? Okay, email dot set two addresses, right? Okay, two addresses. We need to pass that parameter here. Okay, now here I'm going to be collecting the email address of the owner of the batch job. Along with that, I'm adding one more email address over here inside that, and then I'm going to be passing this information. Now. Next. CC is not required for me. BCC also not required for me. Set reply to. Right. Email dot set reply to. Tell me what we can specify in this one. I'm indicating like as some support or customer support, for example, customer support at the rate some dell.com. Next. Right. Set sender display name. Right. Now I'm indicating that. I'm indicating that alert weekly batch job. We can indicate that weekly batch job support team. I'm indicating that weekly batch job support team. I'm indicating that sender display name. Next, email subject. Now in this case, I would like to specify that set subject. Okay. Okay. Email subject equals to, I want to indicate that alert. Weekly batch job status notification alert. So what is that batch job ID? I would like to indicate the batch job ID also inside this. How can we get the batch job ID here? Job info dot ID. Okay, I'm collecting this one. So I'm preparing that email subject alert. So now weekly batch job status notification alert. I'm indicating that batch job ID inside this one. So now I would like to pass that email subject. Next, email subject is also over. Next, content. Now tell me, email content. Customer support. I'm giving the break line. You know this concept. Okay, now I'm giving the break line. I'm giving one more break line also then. I'm indicating that please find the below weekly batch job status notification alert. Okay, I'm indicating that two break tags to give that 2 line spaces here. Next, I'm indicating this information. Here are the batch job details. I'm giving the 2 break lines. Next, I want to show each and every detail of the batch job here. Batch job ID is, how can we get the batch job ID? Job info dot ID. Next, I want to give you a line break. Batch job name. I want to indicate the batch job name. So what is the batch job name over here? Let me copy that batch job name. I'm indicating the batch job name here. I'm hard coding the batch job name. Next, what is the batch job status? Batch job status. Job info dot status. Next, then number of batches, total number of batches. How can we get this one? Job info dot total job items. I'm giving that break line again. Number of batches processed. How can we get this information? Job info dot job items processed. Okay, job items processed. Next, after that, number of batches failed. Job info dot number of errors. Okay, number of errors. I'm indicating this information. Along with that, I want to indicate that 2 break lines. Okay, 2 break lines. Please contact on the below address if any queries. Okay, if any queries. I'm indicating the two break lines. I'm giving that information. Is a system generated email. So please do not reply. I'm giving the two break lines. Thanks and regards. I'm giving a break line. Customer support team. I'm giving the break tag. Dell Incorporation. This is my email content. Okay. So now here in this case, I would like to send this email notification to that. Okay. The email, the job owner, okay, regarding the batch job status. I want to indicate, dear customer support, so please find the below weekly batch job status notification alert, and this is the batch job information. Here are the batch job details. This is the ID of the batch job, name of the batch job, status of the batch job, total number of batches, number of batches processed by Salesforce server, number of batches has been failed, and then I'm giving some basic information, disclaimer information inside this. Okay, clear up to this part? Already we have discussed here. Previously, you know how to send the email notification to the people, how to add the attachments, how to build that PDF files dynamically at runtime, how to write the content inside that, how to prepare the HTML contents also, how to prepare the HTML tables. Everything we have done already in the previous examples. Okay, now. So now in this case, I want to pass this value to which method? Email dot set HTML body, right? Okay, HTML body. Suppose if it is a plain text information, then what is the method? Set a plain text body method. Okay, right. So now I'm indicating that HTML content. Next, after that, what needs to be done? Attachments. We don't have any attachments right now here. Okay, now I would like to send the email notification. How can we send? Messaging dot send email. We can specify new messaging dot single email message. We can specify that email object. Okay. So now here I'm going to sending this email notification with the help of a method called as send email method. So in order to know whether this email has been delivered or not, how can we track? What is that class to track whether the email notification has been delivered or not? In order to know whether the email notification has been delivered successfully or not, we are using a class called as send email result. Like as your save result, update result, delete result, like the similar way we are having send email result class also. Through this class, we can able to track whether the email notification has been delivered successfully or not. Okay, clear? Understood the concept up to now? Now. So now I would like to call this method here. How can we call this method now? Now, as soon as whenever my batch processing has been done, in order to send the email notification related to my batch job, I would like to utilize this particular class method. How can we call this one? Okay, now we can specify that class name dot. Then what is that method name? Send a batch job status notification email here. What we need to supply now? Async apex job. After async apex job type is what? Job details. You can able to pass that parameter. That's it. Over. Okay. Now, so now we are going to be calling this information here. So this is the way we can able to implement the batch processing inside that. Clear? Simple steps. Okay. Don't feel difficult. Okay, it's a very simple step. You know that how to implement that batchable interface inside your class. And then we are providing the start method, and then execute method and the finish method implementations. So now as part of start method, we are collecting all the records which you would like to process. And we are placing those records inside the temporary memory, that starting memory address I'm passing to the query locator class. So for that one, I'm using the return statement. Now, once that memory address has been getting collected by this get query locator method, we are returning that memory address to that method. So the return type is query locator class. It will pick up that memory address. It will be dividing the records to various batches. And then once the records have been divided to the various batches, it will be collecting each and every batch and passing to that execute method. Now the execute method will be receiving that batch records in the form of list of subject type, and then I'm collecting that batch records. I'm verifying whether that batch is having some records or not. If it is not empty, if the batch is having some records, now I would like to collect that batch records. I would like to process it, so that I'm going to be collecting each and every record from that batch. I'm iterating from starting to ending by using that for loop. I'm collecting every subject type of record. I'm converting into my own account type. Once the record has been converting into my own type, then I'm doing the required update operations, and I'm storing that record back to that collection. Because I can't perform the DML operation within the for loop, so that here I'm going to be adding the record to that collection by using bulkification process. So that once all the records has been added to the collection, then outside the for loop, outside the for loop, I'm going to verifying whether this collection is holding some records or not. If the collection is holding some records, then I'm going to be updating the records back to the database. Once the records have been getting updated, then I'm going to be sending the batch job status notification by collecting it from that async updates job, and I'm sending this information to that utility class method here. So this is my messaging utility helper class, which is having a method which will be taking care of the responsibility of sending the email notification to the batch job owner. So I'm passing that batch job details to this particular method. The method will be receiving the batch job details as a parameter. It will collect each and every parameter value. Based on that, it is preparing the email content. It will be sending the email notification to that person here. Okay, clear? Now, understood the concept now? No. Any questions? Now we are indicating upon execution. Okay, upon execution. As of now, we are done with that second step. Okay, we are done with that first step, second step. Okay, now third step, now we are going to be invoking that. That means here, as of now, we have prepared the batch job. Now how to invoke the batch job? Now let's see. So now upon invoking the batch job, we have multiple ways. Okay, we have multiple ways. Upon invoking that batch job, we are having that multiple ways are available. Ways to invoke the batch job. Now tell me your approach. Right, okay. By using execute anonymous window. Next. Can't we prepare a Visualforce page? In that one, can't we place a button control? When you click on the button, my batch has to be get executed. Yes, we can do like that also. So that by using Visualforce programming. Visualforce programming. Next. Can't we execute one batch from another batch? Like as a chaining process, as a linking process. Right. Now already I'm having one batch. Okay, once the batch has been executed, now this batch will be getting invoking automatically. That means with the help of chaining process here, nothing but from another batch class. That is by using chaining process. Can't we schedule this batch to be run for every day or every week or every month? Yes, we can able to by using schedule mechanism. By using scheduling process or schedule programming. So these are the multiple ways are available in order to invoke your batch job. Whenever if you want to invoke the batch job, we are having that multiple ways. From the execute anonymous window also we can invoke. By using Visual Force programming, we can invoke. We can invoke one batch job from another batch job also by using chaining process. And then we can invoke that batch job with the help of that scheduling. So that instead of executing this batch job, okay, manually by your own, we can make it a schedule to be get run on periodical intervals. I want to execute that batch job, okay, every day morning at 2 o'clock, every day evening at 4 o'clock, depends upon your requirement, we can make it schedule. You know how to schedule that, okay, how to schedule the reports we know as part of reporting concept. Like the similar way, we can able to schedule your Apex classes also, okay. Clear? Now, so now let's see, I would like to go with that execute anonymous window here. How can we invoke this batch class? Now let me show you practically. Done with this one? Which one? We are performing DML operation, right? All the DML operations we can do. Insertions, updations, everything we can do. Now, so let me execute this batch class now. How can we execute the batch class? Class name dot method name. Invoking batch class. Invoking batch class. First of all, what needs to be done? Create the object of the batch class. Okay, what is my batch class name? Okay, update account details batch. I'm indicating that accounts batch. I'm creating the object name with the name accounts batch, new update accounts batch. Next. Next one. How to invoke the batch class now? Database dot execute batch. Upon using this database dot execute batch, I'm having two methods are available. Okay, two methods are there with the same name, execute batch, execute batch. Now in the first method, what will happen now? Default batch size will be getting considered. If I'm using the second one, then our batch size will be getting considered. So now which you would like to go now? Second one. So I would like to go with my own batch size. So that I'm passing that batch class object name, I'm giving the batch size as 10. Now in this case, what it returns now? ID of the batch job here. So now here I don't want the batch job ID, even though simply for your information, I'm giving that syntax here. Okay. Now, because here I'm collecting the batch job ID through programmatically, I'm tracking the status, I'm sending the notifications also through programming itself. Now, in this case, now this size will be from which to which? What is that minimum size, maximum size? Minimum is 1, maximum 2000 here. Okay, 2000. Now, clear? This is the third step. That means what we are done with that batch programming. Now we are going to be executing this batch here. Okay, now. So in this case, let me execute that batch class and let me test that functionality. It has to update all the records information, and then it is going to be sending that email notification to me automatically by default. Okay, now. So let me log in into my Gmail account. Okay. So now again in this case, so let me execute that batch class now so that we can see that results. Okay. Give me anybody's email ID so that you can get that email notification. For the testing purpose. Mahesh? KP GR. Give me the confirmation. Okay. Now, so now here I'm sending the email notification, okay, to these email IDs. So let me execute this piece of code. Now click on execute button. I'm executing the batch class. Batch class has been sent to that Salesforce server, which will be executing the batch class by placing inside that Salesforce queue. Once the batch class execution has been done, immediately it will be sending the email notification to that specified email ID. So we have received that email notification over here. So now this is that the sender display name, which weekly batch job support team, and then we are having the email subject alert, weekly batch job status notification alert. So now it is indicating that the batch job ID. This is the ID has been allocated by Salesforce for my batch job. Now open that batch job. Now we can see this information. It is indicating the details, dear customer support, and then this is the batch job details which has been executed. This is the ID of the batch job and the batch job name. Status is completed. Number of batches are 26. Number of batches processed 26. Number of failed batches are 0. And after that, it is sending that email notification automatically by default here. Okay. So this is the way we can able to receive that email notifications over here. Okay. Now, next one. So let me show you second mechanism to track that batch job status. What is the second way to track the batch job status here? Go to the monitor option. Go to the monitor. Last, you will be having the jobs. Click on Apex jobs. Okay, click on Apex jobs. Now we can see what batch jobs has been executed here. Now the batch job has been executed. What is my batch job name? Update account details batch. For this batch job, this is the ID has been allocated by Salesforce. Now, so inside my batch job, how many batches are available? Total number of batches are 26. Number of batches processed 26. Failed batches are 0. Status is completed. This is a batch Apex programming which has been initiated by the person. Here the so and so user and so date and so time it has been initiated. So we can track this whole information also. Suppose in some cases, if your batch job has been failed, if you're not getting any email notification, then come to this place. Please verify what is the status details here. In this status details column, you can see what is the error message, what is that exception. We can see that information here. According to that, go to your batch job, write that code perfectly, then you can execute it again here. Okay, clear? No. Now, so let's come to the records now. Refresh this user interface. For every record, the values have been modified. The rating has been changed to warm. Industry has been modified to finance. Annual revenue modified. Ownership value also has been modified. For every record, the details has been updated successfully over here. Okay, by dividing them to the various small pieces, all the records have been modified. So that we can able to test that functionalities also with the help of this observing the records inside your object service. Okay, clear? This is a way we are going to be implementing that batch class inside your Salesforce instance. Okay. We have to send email notifications. If the records has been failed, we need to track which record has been failed. We need to track that information. We have to send a notification. Okay. In this case, we have to use. Suppose, for example, now he has raised a good question, sir. For example, upon processing that one record has been failed, how can we track? How can we track that failed record? Log file, no. One record has been failed. Then what we can do? Instead of using this normal update method, what method we need to use? Database.update method. Okay, then we can able to track the result, send it through email notification. How to send this information through email notification? Already did that example also. Okay, in the previous case we have discussed about that example also during that email programming. Okay, during the email programming, you did that example also. How to track that information, how to send through email notifications. Okay. Now, ready? Both you can use. Depends on the requirement. Suppose for sometimes here, I want to get that confirmation back, like what records has been filled. At that time, we have to go with the database dot update. No, it won't take more time. It will be taking very fraction of minutes. Because some 2 minutes, 3 minutes max. It won't take more time. It will update that. Done with this one? Okay.